The morning sun glinted off the polished hoods of luxury cars as Mei Li pulled into the dealership parking lot. She turned off the engine of her modest sedan, which had served her well for the past 8 years but was starting to show its age. Today was the day she would finally upgrade to something that matched both her success and her values, a high-performance electric vehicle that had been on her wish list for months. Mei took a deep breath and checked her reflection. In the rearview mirror, she hadn't dressed up for the occasion, wearing just a simple pair of jeans, comfortable sneakers, and a plain blue blouse. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. As the lead software engineer at a growing tech company, Mei preferred comfort over fashion and rarely felt the need to dress to impress. "You've done your research," she reminded herself quietly. Indeed, she had spent countless evenings reading reviews, watching test drive videos, and comparing specifications. She understood the battery technology, motor efficiency, and autonomous driving capabilities of these vehicles better than most salespeople would. Mei had even calculated the exact monthly payment she could afford and had already been pre-approved for financing. She grabbed her tablet, which contained all her research notes, and stepped out of her car. The dealership loomed before her, all glass and chrome, with the sleek vehicles displayed like museum pieces. Mei felt a flutter of excitement as she spotted the exact model she was interested in, a midnight blue, electric sedan with cutting-edge technology and impressive range. As she pushed through the heavy glass doors, cool air and the scent of leather and new carpet greeted her. The showroom was relatively quiet for a Saturday, with just a handful of other customers wandering around. Mei noticed immediately how the 3 salespeople on the floor seemed to track the movements of a couple in designer clothes while barely registering her presence. Mei made her way to the display model that had caught her eye, circling it slowly, admiring the clean lines and thoughtful design. She peered through the windows at the minimalist interior with its large central touchscreen. This was exactly what she had been saving for. After about 10 minutes of examining various models without being approached, Mei decided to seek out help herself. She walked toward a salesman who had just finished speaking with another customer. He was tall with perfectly styled hair and wore an expensive-looking suit that seemed designed to make customers feel slightly underdressed. "Excuse me," Mei said, offering a friendly smile. "I'm interested in learning more about this model and would like to schedule a test drive today if possible." The salesman, whose nameplate read Richard, looked her up and down with a quick glance that seemed to assess everything from her casual clothing to her lack of visible status symbols. "Have you ever driven a vehicle in this price range before?" he asked, his tone slightly condescending. Mei kept her expression neutral despite the unexpected question. "No, but I've done extensive research on this particular model. I'm especially interested in the dual motor configuration and how it handles regenerative braking." Richard's eyebrows lifted slightly, perhaps surprised by her technical knowledge, but his demeanor remained cool. "Well, unfortunately, test drives for these premium models require appointments made in advance. It's company policy." Mei frowned slightly. "I don't see that mentioned on your website. I checked your test drive information last night. It's a newer policy," Richard said smoothly, "for insurance purposes." Just then, the glass doors swung open and a man in a tailored business suit walked in. Richard's eyes darted toward the newcomer, and his posture straightened almost imperceptibly. "If you'll excuse me for a moment," he said to Mei without waiting for a response, already stepping away. "Feel free to look around and perhaps consider some of our more accessible models." Mei stood there, tablet in hand, watching as Richard approached the man in the suit with an entirely different demeanor, open, attentive, and eager to please. Within minutes, she heard him offering the very test drive he had just denied her. Rather than leaving immediately, Mei decided to continue exploring the showroom. She approached another vehicle, this one even more expensive than her target model, and began examining its features. She opened the driver's door and slid into the plush leather seat, feeling how it adjusted to her frame. The new car smell enveloped her as she ran her fingers along the steering wheel and dashboard, noting the quality of materials and the thoughtful placement of controls. After a few minutes, a different salesperson, this time a woman named Patricia according to her nameplate, approached with a practiced smile. "Just looking, or do you have questions?" Patricia asked, her tone pleasant but not particularly engaged. "Actually, I'm quite interested in purchasing today," Mei replied, deciding to be direct. but I'd like to test drive before making a final decision. Which model were you considering? Patricia asked, her expression neutral. The Electra GT in midnight blue, May said, pointing to her original target vehicle. I've researched it extensively and believe it matches my needs perfectly. Patricia's smile tightened slightly. That's one of our premium models. Most customers start with something more. Entry level for their first luxury purchase. May fought to keep her expression neutral. This was the second time in 20 minutes that someone at this dealership had subtly suggested she couldn't afford their vehicles. I understand it's a premium model, she said calmly. I'm a software engineering team lead and I've been saving specifically for this purchase. I've already been pre-approved for financing. She pulled up the pre-approval letter on her tablet and turned it toward Patricia. The saleswoman glanced at it briefly but seemed unimpressed. Let me get my manager to discuss test drive options with you, she said before walking away. May waited patiently, watching as Patricia spoke to a man in a charcoal suit across the showroom. The man looked in her direction, frowned slightly, and then nodded before approaching with Patricia trailing behind him. Hello, I'm Thomas, the sales manager, he said, extending his hand without quite the enthusiasm he'd shown to other customers. Patricia tells me you're interested in the Electra GT. That's right, May confirmed, shaking his hand firmly. I'd like to test drive it today if possible. Thomas clasped his hands together. Well, for certain vehicles in our premium lineup, we do require a refundable deposit before scheduling test drives. It's a matter of insurance and ensuring serious interest given the value of the vehicles. A deposit? May questioned, noticing how the couple in designer clothing was now being handed keys to the exact same model without any mention of deposits. May I ask how much? $500, Thomas replied smoothly. Fully refundable if you decide not to purchase, of course. May considered this for a moment. She could easily afford the deposit, but something felt off about the situation.
Is this a standard policy for all customers interested in test driving the Electra GT?
Thomas shifted his weight. We make assessments on a case-by-case basis. I see, May said quietly, her suspicions confirmed. She glanced around the showroom once more, noting how another customer, a man in golf attire, was being led outside toward a vehicle without any paperwork or apparent deposit. And what determines which cases require deposits? Thomas didn't answer directly. Instead, he smiled thinly and said, If the deposit is a concern, perhaps I could show you some of our more accessible models. They still offer excellent performance without the premium price tag. May felt a familiar sensation, a mixture of disappointment and frustration that she had experienced too many times before. Despite her success, her education, and her careful preparation, she was being judged solely on her appearance and perceived status. Thank you for your time, she said finally, maintaining her composure. I think I'll need to reconsider my options. As she walked toward the exit, May pulled out her phone and quickly texted her husband, who was just finishing up his shift at the hospital. Dealership won't let me test drive without a special deposit. Apparently, I don't look like their typical customer. Thinking of trying another place unless you want to see this for yourself? The reply came quickly. Just finished surgery. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. Don't leave yet. May smiled to herself as she put her phone away. She wasn't giving up just yet. Instead, she walked back to her car, sat inside, and opened her laptop. While waiting for her husband, she began researching other dealerships in the area, making notes about their inventory and customer reviews. Through her windshield, she watched as other customers came and went, noticing patterns in who received immediate attention and who didn't. This experience, though frustrating, wasn't entirely surprising. It was just another reminder that success didn't always translate to respect, especially when people made judgments based on quick visual assessments. Their loss, she murmured to herself as she found another dealership with the same model in stock. She bookmarked the page, knowing that soon she'd have a chance to see just how quickly perceptions could change when the same woman walked in with her husband, whose position as a chief surgeon at the city's most prestigious hospital tended to open doors that remained firmly closed to her alone. She settled back in her seat and waited, already imagining the expressions that would cross Richard's and Thomas's faces when they realized their mistake. The thought brought a small smile to her lips as she continued her research, determined to make an informed decision regardless of how she was treated. May remained in her car, alternating between researching other dealerships and watching the comings and goings through the large glass windows of the showroom. The longer she sat there, the more her initial disappointment hardened into determination. She had worked too hard to be dismissed so easily. 20 minutes into her wait, May decided she wasn't going to just sit there. If they wouldn't let her test drive the car, she could at least gather more information. She tucked her tablet into her bag and walked back toward the dealership entrance with renewed purpose. This time when she entered, Richard was busy with another customer, but Thomas, the sales manager, noticed her return. His eyebrows lifted slightly in surprise before his face settled back into a neutral expression. He made no move to approach her. May walked directly to the midnight blue Electra GT that had first caught her eye. A small group of people had gathered around it, 2 men and a woman all dressed in business casual attire. They were listening attentively as Patricia, the saleswoman who had been dismissive earlier, enthusiastically highlighted the car's features. "The acceleration is incredible," Patricia was saying. 0 to 60 in just 3.2 seconds, but it's so smooth you barely feel it. And the range is best in class, nearly 400 miles on a single charge. May stood at the edge of the group listening. These were all specs she already knew, but she was curious to see how the saleswoman presented the information to these potential buyers. "What about charging time?" one of the men asked. "Using a standard home charger, you'll get a full battery overnight," Patricia explained. "But with our fast charging network, you can get from 20 to 80% in just 25 minutes. "And the interior options?" the woman in the group inquired. Patricia beamed. "Let me show you." She opened the driver's side door with a flourish. "We have 3 premium interior packages. This one features hand-stitched vegan leather, sustainable wood accents, and a glass roof that can adjust its tint electronically." As the group oohed and awed over the interior, May noticed Thomas watching her from across the showroom. She met his gaze steadily before turning her attention back to the vehicle discussion. "Can we take it for a test drive?" the second man asked. "Absolutely," Patricia replied without hesitation. "Let me just grab the keys and a temporary plate. You'll want to experience the handling yourself. It's like nothing else on the road." May felt her jaw tighten. No mention of appointments, no talk of deposits. The contrast in treatment couldn't have been clearer. As Patricia led the group toward the back office to handle the paperwork for their test drive, May approached a different salesperson who was arranging brochures at a desk nearby. "Excuse me," she said. The young man looked up, his name badge reading Alex. "How can I help you?" he asked, his tone professionally pleasant if not particularly warm. "I'm interested in the Electra GT's autonomous driving features," May said. "Could you tell me more about how they work in real-world conditions?" Alex seemed to assess her briefly before responding. "The Electra uses a combination of cameras, radar, and LiDAR to create a 360-degree view of its surroundings. It's capable of highway driving with minimal input, and it can handle lane changes and exits if you set your destination in the navigation system." "And how does it compare to competitors' systems?" May pressed. "I've read that some have issues with phantom braking or get confused by unusual road markings." Alex appeared slightly surprised by the technical nature of her question. "Our system has the lowest rate of disengagements in the industry. The latest software update improved performance in construction zones and unusual intersections by about 40%. May nodded, making a mental note. This aligned with her research. "And what about over-the-air updates? How frequently are they pushed out?" "Major updates come quarterly, but smaller patches can happen monthly," Alex explained, warming slightly to the conversation now that it was clear May knew what she was talking about. "Each update adds new features or improves existing ones. The car actually gets better the longer you own it." "That's impressive," May said sincerely. "Is there any way I could see the user interface in action? Even if I can't test drive today, I'd like to get a feel for how the controls work." Alex hesitated, glancing toward Thomas, who was now talking to Richard across the showroom. "I suppose we could power it up for a demonstration," he said finally. "The display model is always connected." He led her to the showroom model, white rather than her preferred midnight blue, but otherwise identical. Alex opened the driver's door and gestured for her to sit inside. May slid into the comfortable seat, her hands naturally finding the steering wheel. The interior was even more impressive up close. Clean lines, high-quality materials, and an elegant simplicity that appealed to her aesthetic sense. Press the button on the right side of the steering wheel to wake it up, Alex instructed. May did as directed, and the large center screen came to life with a subtle animation. The digital dashboard in front of her also illuminated, showing a minimalist display of the essential information. The interface is designed to minimize distraction, Alex explained, leaning in through the open door. Most functions can be controlled by voice, but the touchscreen is intuitive for those who prefer it. May navigated through several menus, impressed by the logical organization and responsive touch. "This is really well designed," she said, genuinely impressed. "The entire user experience was created with input from UX experts," Alex said, seeming to forget momentarily that he was supposed to be discouraging her. The goal was to make everything accessible within 2 taps or 1 voice command. For the next 15 minutes, Alex walked her through various features: the climate control system, the entertainment options, the navigation, and the customizable driver profiles. May asked intelligent questions that occasionally made Alex pause to think before answering. Their conversation was interrupted when Thomas appeared suddenly at Alex's shoulder. "How's everything going here?" he asked, his tone carrying a hint of displeasure as he looked at his young salesperson. "Just showing some of the interface features," Alex replied, straightening up. "I see." Thomas turned to May with a tight smile. "Finding everything interesting?" "Very," May replied calmly. "Alex has been quite helpful. The UI is even better than I expected." Thomas nodded curtly. "Alex, I need you to assist with the Wilsons. They've just arrived for their 2 o'clock appointment." It was a clear dismissal, and Alex got the message. He gave May an apologetic look before stepping away. "If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to help when I'm free," he said. Once Alex was gone, Thomas turned back to May. "I hope you're enjoying your time with us, but I should mention that we typically reserve these detailed demonstrations for clients who have scheduled appointments or who are in the final stages of purchase." The implication was clear. She wasn't considered a serious buyer. "I understand," May said, keeping her voice level as she exited the vehicle. "Thank you for the clarification. I'll keep that in mind." She checked her watch. Her husband would be arriving soon. Part of her wanted to leave, to take her business elsewhere immediately. But another part, the part that had faced doubts and dismissals throughout her career in tech, wanted to see this through. "Is there a coffee machine or water dispenser I could use while I wait?" she asked. "My husband is joining me shortly. He's very interested in seeing the Electra as well." Something in Thomas's expression changed at the mention of a husband, a subtle shift that May had seen countless times before. It was as if her potential value as a customer had suddenly increased with the mention of a spouse who might control the finances. "Of course," Thomas said, his tone notably warmer. "We have a customer lounge just past the main showroom. There's a premium coffee machine and cold beverages available. Help yourself." "Thank you," May replied, hiding her disappointment at this predictable change in attitude. She made her way to the lounge area, which was comfortably furnished with leather chairs, current magazines on sleek coffee tables, and a high-end coffee machine in the corner. A few other people sat in the lounge, presumably waiting for paperwork or service completions. May chose a seat that gave her a view of the main entrance and made herself a cup of tea from the selection available. As she sipped it, she watched the dynamics of the showroom with the detached interest of someone who had spent years observing workplace behaviors. She saw how quickly salespeople approached certain customers, usually men in business attire or couples who looked affluent. She noticed how other visitors, a young couple in casual clothes, an elderly woman, a middle-aged man in work clothes, had to actively seek assistance. Patricia returned with the group she had taken for a test drive. They were animated, clearly excited about the car. The woman was gesturing enthusiastically as they discussed something, probably their driving experience. Through the large windows, May could see more customers arriving. And then, pulling into a parking space near the front, she spotted her husband's car. She straightened slightly, finishing her tea as she watched him exit his vehicle. Even from a distance, Dr. Jun-woo cut an imposing figure. Tall and distinguished in his tailored suit, he moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to making life-or-death decisions daily. He hadn't had time to change after his shift at the hospital, and still wore his surgeon's ID badge on his lapel. May gathered her belongings and stood, a small smile playing at her lips as she watched through the glass walls as her husband approached the entrance. She was not looking forward to creating a scene that wasn't her style, but she was looking forward to the subtle shift in perception that was about to occur. The dismissal she had experienced wasn't new to her. It had happened before and would likely happen again, but each time, it reinforced her determination to succeed on her own terms, to claim the respect she deserved not because of who she was married to, but because of who she was. She walked back into the main showroom just as Jun pushed through the glass doors, his eyes scanning the space until they found hers. His serious expression warmed into a smile as he spotted her, and she moved to meet him, curious to see how the next chapter of this dealership drama would unfold. Jun Woo walked into the dealership with the purposeful stride of someone who valued efficiency. His dark suit was impeccably pressed despite his long day at the hospital, and his surgeon's ID badge from Bay City Medical Center was still clipped to his lapel. He hadn't taken the time to change or remove it after his final procedure of the day, a complex spinal surgery that had gone remarkably well. As soon as he stepped through the doors, May noticed a shift in the atmosphere. Richard, who had dismissed her earlier, looked up from his desk and immediately straightened his posture. Thomas, the sales manager who had insisted on a deposit, quickly adjusted his tie and began moving in Jun's direction. May reached her husband first, greeting him with a warm smile. "Sorry I couldn't get here sooner," Jun said, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. "The surgery went longer than expected." "Did everything turn out okay?" May asked, genuinely concerned. She knew how invested Jun became in his patient's outcomes. "Better than we hoped," he replied with a modest smile. The patient should regain most of his mobility. Before they could continue their conversation, Thomas appeared at Jun's elbow, hand extended in greeting. "Good afternoon, sir." "Welcome to Prestige Motors. I'm Thomas Wilson, the sales manager. How can I assist you today?" Jun shook the offered hand with a polite but reserved smile. "I'm here with my wife, actually. She's been looking at the Electra GT." Thomas's eyes flickered briefly to May, then back to Jun. Of course. The Electra is one of our flagship models." "Excellent choice. Would you like a personal tour of its features?" May watched the interaction with a mixture of amusement and irritation. The contrast in Thomas's behavior was so stark it was almost comical. "My wife has already been here for some time," Jun said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "I understand there was some issue with a test drive?" Thomas's smile faltered slightly. Yes. Well, for our premium models, we sometimes require appointments for test drives. It's a matter of insurance and ensuring serious interest," May finished for him, her voice pleasant but firm. "And a refundable deposit of $500, I believe you said." Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "That's our standard policy for some customers," May added, meeting his gaze directly. Jun glanced between them, his expression unchanged but a knowing look in his eyes. He'd seen this scenario play out before with his wife. "I see," Jun said simply. He turned to Thomas with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well, we're both here now and we're very interested in the Electra GT. My wife has done extensive research on it. She's much more knowledgeable about the technical aspects than I am. I trust her judgment completely when it comes to these decisions." Thomas's demeanor shifted yet again, becoming even more accommodating. "Of course, sir. We'd be happy to arrange a test drive immediately. The midnight blue model you were looking at is available right now, in fact." Jun nodded, then looked at May. "Is that still the color you prefer?" "It is," she confirmed. "Excellent," Thomas said, clapping his hands together. "If you'll both follow me, we can get the paperwork started right away. No deposit necessary, of course." As they followed Thomas toward his office, May and Jun exchanged a look that contained volumes of shared experience. This wasn't the first time they had encountered such treatment, and they had developed an unspoken understanding of how to handle it. In Thomas's office, the sales manager suddenly became extremely attentive to May, addressing questions to her that he had previously directed only to Jun. It was a transparent attempt to correct his earlier behavior, but the damage had already been done, so, "Mrs. Wu," Thomas said, his voice now respectful. "Alex mentioned you were particularly interested in the autonomous driving features. Did you have specific questions about how they perform in various conditions?" "I did," May replied evenly, "but Alex already answered most of them quite thoroughly." He's one of our newest team members, Thomas said with a nervous chuckle. Still learning the ropes, but very knowledgeable about the technology. He was very helpful, May agreed. Unlike some of your more experienced staff. Thomas cleared his throat uncomfortably and busied himself with the test drive paperwork. Just need your driver's license and insurance information. From either of you, he added quickly. May handed over her documents. It will be under my name. I'll be the primary driver. Thomas nodded, copying down her information with exaggerated care. And you mentioned you're already pre-approved for financing? That's right, May said. Though we're considering several options, including paying cash, depending on what incentives you're offering this month. At the mention of a potential cash purchase, Thomas's eyes widened slightly. We do have several promotions running. I'd be happy to go over all of them with you after the test drive. 10 minutes later, they were outside in the parking lot, where Patricia was waiting beside the midnight blue Electra GT. Her entire demeanor toward May had transformed. Now she was all smiles and deference. Mrs. Wu, I've preset the climate control and adjusted the driver's seat based on standard settings. But you can customize everything once you're inside, Patricia explained, handing the keycard to May. The controls are very intuitive. Thank you, May said as she opened the driver's door. Jun moved to the passenger side. Will you be joining them, Mr. Wu? Patricia asked Thomas, who was hovering nearby. I don't think that will be necessary, Thomas replied. Unless you'd prefer to have a product specialist along? This question was directed at Jun. Before Jun could respond, May answered from the driver's seat. We'll be fine on our own, thank you. My husband and I would like to discuss our impressions privately. Of course, Thomas agreed quickly. Take all the time you need. The route programmed into the navigation system will give you a good mix of city streets and highway driving to experience all the car's capabilities. As the doors closed and May pressed the start button, the car came to life with a subtle hum. The large center screen displayed a welcome message and began running through a brief orientation. You know, Jun said quietly as they pulled away from the dealership, we could report them for discrimination. May glanced at her husband before turning her attention back to the road. We could, she agreed. But right now I just want to enjoy this test drive that I've been looking forward to for weeks. Jun smiled. Fair enough. So what do you think so far? May accelerated smoothly onto the main road, feeling the instant torque push them back into their seats. A small smile played at her lips. It's everything the reviews promised. For the next 30 minutes, they drove in companionable conversation, with May putting the car through its paces on various road conditions. She tested the acceleration, the handling on curves, the regenerative braking system, and the various driver assistance features. Jun asked occasional questions, but mostly he observed his wife's growing enthusiasm for the vehicle. You're going to buy it, aren't you? He asked as they turned back toward the dealership. Maybe, May replied with a thoughtful expression, but not from them. Jun nodded in understanding. There are 3 other dealerships in the area that carry this model. Exactly, May confirmed. I researched all of them. There's one across town that has excellent reviews for customer service. Their sales staff is trained not to make assumptions about who can afford what. Sounds like a much better place to spend our money, Jun agreed. As they pulled back into the dealership lot, they could see Thomas and Richard waiting anxiously near the entrance. Patricia stood nearby with a tablet, presumably ready to begin the sales process. Ready for this? Jun asked as May parked the car. She took a deep breath and nodded. Completely. They exited the vehicle together, and Thomas immediately approached with an expectant smile. How was the drive? Impressive, isn't it? Very, May acknowledged. The performance is exceptional. Wonderful. Should we head inside to discuss numbers? As I mentioned, we have several promotions this month that might interest you. May and Jun exchanged a glance before May spoke. Actually, Thomas, we've decided to continue looking at our options before making a decision. Thomas's smile faltered. Oh? Was there something about the vehicle that didn't meet your expectations? Perhaps another trim level would be more suitable. The car is exactly what I expected, May said calmly. It's the customer service that fell short. Thomas's expression froze. I'm not sure I understand. I think you do, May replied. But to be clear, when I came in alone, I was told I needed an appointment and a special deposit to test drive this exact vehicle. Other customers received immediate assistance while I was ignored or redirected to more accessible models. There must have been some misunderstanding, Thomas began, but John cut him off gently. My wife doesn't misunderstand things, Thomas. She's one of the sharpest people I know. That's why she's leading a development team at one of the top tech firms in the city. Thomas looked between them, clearly at a loss for words. We'll be taking our business elsewhere, May concluded. But I do appreciate you finally allowing me to experience the car. It confirmed that it's the right choice for me, just not from this dealership. As they walked toward their respective vehicles, John placed a hand lightly on May's shoulder. That was perfectly handled, he said quietly. May smiled up at him. Thanks for coming down here, though part of me wishes I could have resolved it without needing you to show up and suddenly make me appear creditworthy. Change happens slowly, John sighed, but it does happen. One interaction at a time. Next stop, Bay Bridge Motors, May asked as they reached her car. Absolutely, John nodded. I hear their sales manager is a woman who worked her way up from the service department. Might be a refreshing change of pace. May's smile widened as she got into her car. The day hadn't gone as originally planned, but it had certainly been educational. And soon she'd be driving home in her new Electra GT, purchased from a dealership that had earned her business through respect, not assumptions. The drive to Bay Bridge Motors took about 20 minutes, with May following June's car through the busy afternoon traffic. She used the time to process what had happened at Prestige Motors. The frustration still lingered, but there was also a sense of satisfaction in having stood her ground. Too often in the past, she had simply walked away without saying anything. But today felt different. Bay Bridge Motors had a smaller lot than Prestige, but the showroom was just as impressive. A modern glass and steel structure with cars displayed under perfect lighting. As they pulled into the parking area, May noticed something different immediately. The staff visible through the windows was noticeably more diverse than at Prestige. June waited for her to park, and they walked into the dealership together. Unlike at Prestige, where they had waited to be approached, a woman in her mid-40s with a friendly smile walked up to them almost immediately. Welcome to Bay Bridge Motors, she said, extending her hand. I'm Vivian Chen, the sales manager. How can I help you today? May shook her hand, appreciating the firm grip and direct eye contact. I'm interested in the Electra GT. I've done quite a bit of research, and I'm ready for a test drive if you have one available. We do, Vivian replied with a nod. We have two on the lot, one in silver and one in midnight blue. Were you leaning toward a particular color? Midnight blue, May said, pleased that Vivian had addressed her directly rather than shifting attention to Jun. Excellent choice, Vivian said. Let me grab the keys and we can take it out. Would you like a quick overview of the features first, or have you already familiarized yourself with them? I've done my homework, May acknowledged. But I'd be interested in hearing about any features that aren't widely covered in the reviews. Vivian smiled approvingly. A prepared customer, my favorite kind. Why don't we walk over to the vehicle while I get the paperwork started? We just need a copy of your driver's license and proof of insurance. As they walked through the showroom, May noticed that Vivian occasionally glanced at Jun, but kept the conversation primarily directed at her. It was a refreshing change. Have you visited other dealerships? Vivian asked conversationally as she led them to a desk where a younger colleague sat. May and June exchanged a look. We just came from Prestige Motors, actually, May admitted. Something in her tone must have communicated her experience because Vivian raised an eyebrow. I see. Well, we have a different philosophy here. I started in the service department 20 years ago, and I learned that assumptions about customers are usually wrong and always expensive. She smiled. Lisa, can you make a copy of Mrs. Lee? May supplied. May Lee, and this is my husband, Jun Woo. Different last names? Vivian noted without judgment. We'll make sure the paperwork reflects that correctly if you decide to purchase. Lisa efficiently made copies of May's documents and handed her a simple form to fill out. Just your contact information and signature acknowledging you're insured to drive the vehicle. No deposit required. 10 minutes later, they were walking toward the midnight blue Electra GT parked in the demonstration area. It was identical to the one at Prestige, but somehow this experience already felt vastly different. The key card works just like a hotel key, Vivian explained, handing it to May. Just keep it in your pocket or purse, and the car will sense when you're approaching. Notice how the door handles extend outward? May nodded, watching as the flush door handles emerged from the car's sleek body as they approached. The car recognizes you within about 6 feet, Vivian continued. You can adjust the distance in the settings if you prefer. Some people like it to recognize them from further away on cold days so the car can start warming up. May opened the driver's door and settled behind the wheel. Jun took the passenger seat and Vivian slid into the back. I hope you don't mind if I join you, Vivian said. I promise not to be a backseat driver, but I can answer any questions that come up during the test drive. Not at all, May replied. Adjusting the seat and mirrors, as she had at Prestige, May took the car through various road conditions, testing its acceleration, handling, and braking. The difference was that Vivian provided helpful context throughout the drive, pointing out features May might have missed and explaining the reasoning behind certain design choices. The regenerative braking can be adjusted to 4 different levels, Vivian noted as they approached a red light. At the highest setting, you can pretty much drive with just the accelerator pedal, lift off, and the car slows significantly. Some people call it one-pedal driving. May tried it on the next stretch, lifting her foot from the accelerator and feeling the car decelerate smoothly without touching the brake. That's impressive. It feels very intuitive. The engineers spent a lot of time getting the feel just right, Vivian agreed. Too aggressive and it's jarring. Too subtle and you don't get the efficiency benefits. Jun, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. How long have you been selling these models? We were one of the first dealerships to get them when they launched 2 years ago, Vivian replied. I drive one myself, the silver model. It's been absolutely reliable, and the over-the-air updates keep improving it. Last month's update added a new feature that lets you precondition the battery before fast charging. It shaved about 5 minutes off the charging time. The conversation flowed naturally as they completed the test drive route and returned to the dealership. Instead of immediately directing them to a sales desk, Vivian asked if they had any other questions about the vehicle. I'm curious about the maintenance schedule, May said. With no oil changes needed, what's actually required? Very little comparatively, Vivian explained. Tire rotations, brake fluid checks, though the brakes last much longer due to regenerative braking, and cabin air filter replacements. The big service is the battery coolant system, which needs checking every 2 years. We offer a maintenance package that covers everything for the first 4 years at a flat rate. They discussed pricing, options, and delivery timelines. Throughout the conversation, Vivian addressed both of them but took her cues from May, recognizing that she was the primary decision-maker. So what do you think? Jun asked May as Vivian stepped away briefly to check on the exact specifications of their available inventory. Night and day difference, May replied quietly. It's the same car, but the experience is completely different. Jun nodded in agreement. Vivian knows her stuff, and she hasn't once implied that we should look at something more accessible. When Vivian returned, she had a tablet with detailed information. We have 2 vehicles with the exact specifications you're looking for. One is already on the lot, the one you just drove, and the other is scheduled to arrive next week. The incoming one has the performance package with the upgraded suspension if that interests you. May considered this. What's the price difference? $3,000 for the performance package, Vivian said. In my opinion, it's worth it if you enjoy driving on winding roads, but not essential for everyday use. The standard suspension is already excellent. What struck May was the honesty of the assessment. Vivian wasn't pushing the more expensive option. She was giving her professional opinion based on May's expressed interests. I think I'd like the performance package, May decided. I drive up to the mountains at least once a month, and those roads would be perfect for testing the handling. Vivian nodded. Good choice. Now about financing. You mentioned you're considering cash or financing. We can run the numbers both ways so you can compare. For the next half hour, they discussed various options. Vivian presented the information clearly without upselling or pressure tactics. When Jun asked about extended warranties, she gave a balanced view of the pros and cons rather than pushing the most expensive option. By the time they were ready to leave, May had placed a deposit on the incoming vehicle with the performance package. The contrast with their earlier experience couldn't have been more stark. We'll call you as soon as the car arrives next week, Vivian said as she walked them to the door. If you have any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to call me directly. My cell number is on the card I gave you. As they stepped outside, the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the parking lot. May felt a sense of satisfaction that had been missing after their visit to Prestige. "That's how it should be done," June remarked as they walked to their cars. "Exactly," May agreed. "She treated me like an informed buyer from the start." "Are you going to leave a review for Prestige?" June asked. May considered this for a moment. "Yes, I think I will. Not out of spite, but because other women should know what to expect. And maybe it'll encourage them to change their approach." June smiled. "Always thinking about the bigger picture. That's why you're so good at what you do." As they reached their vehicles, May felt her phone vibrate. She checked it to find an automated email confirming her deposit and providing a tracking link for her new car as it made its way to the dealership. "1 week," she said, showing Jun the email. "1 week and I'll be driving my new car home." "From the right dealership," Jun added. May nodded, feeling the lingering frustration from their earlier experience finally fading, replaced by anticipation for her new purchase. Sometimes the journey was as important as the destination, and today's journey had reinforced a valuable lesson. Respect couldn't be bought with money or status. It had to be given freely to be genuine. 1 week later, May woke up earlier than usual. Today was the day her new Electra GT would arrive at Bay Bridge Motors. Vivian had texted her the previous evening to confirm that the car had been delivered to the dealership and was being prepared for her. The midnight blue paint with the performance package was exactly as she had ordered. She dressed casually but deliberately, choosing a comfortable outfit that wasn't too different from what she'd worn the first time she'd walked into Prestige Motors. There was something satisfying about the symmetry. Same person, same clothes, completely different outcome. "Excited?" Jun asked as he handed her a cup of coffee in the kitchen. "Very," May admitted, taking a grateful sip. "I've been reading the owner's manual online to get a head start," Jun chuckled. "Only you would read a 300-page manual for fun." "It's not just for fun," May protested with a smile. "There are a lot of features I want to set up right away. Did you know you can create a profile that automatically adjusts everything from the seat position to the climate preferences when the car recognizes your phone?" "I did not," June admitted. "But I'm not surprised you found that out before even owning the car." After breakfast, John offered to drive her to the dealership. "I can drop you off and catch a rideshare to the hospital. My first surgery isn't until 10. May considered this but shook her head. "Thanks, but I want to drive myself there." Kind of a full circle moment, driving my old car to pick up my new one. John nodded, understanding as always. "Text me a photo as soon as you get it." "Of course," May promised, giving him a quick kiss before grabbing her keys. The drive to Bay Bridge Motors gave her time to reflect on the events of the past week. True to her word, she had written a detailed review of her experience at Prestige Motors. She'd been careful to stick to the facts, describing exactly what had happened without emotional language or accusations. She had simply outlined how differently she'd been treated when alone versus when her husband was present, and contrasted it with her experience at Bay Bridge. Her review had quickly gathered responses. Several women had commented with similar experiences, not just at Prestige but at other high-end dealerships as well. A few men expressed surprise, saying they'd always been treated well there, which only reinforced her point. Most surprisingly, she'd received an email from Thomas, the sales manager at Prestige. It had started with a somewhat defensive tone, but eventually shifted to an apology of sorts. He claimed they were reviewing their sales training procedures and would use her feedback to improve their customer experience. Whether that was genuine or just damage control remained to be seen. As May pulled into the Bay Bridge Motors lot, she spotted her new car immediately. It was parked directly in front of the entrance, gleaming under the morning sun, with a simple blue ribbon on the hood. The sight made her heart beat a little faster. Vivian was waiting by the entrance and waved as May parked her old sedan. "Good morning. Ready for the big handover?" "Absolutely," May replied, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "We've got everything prepared," Vivian said, leading her inside. "The paperwork is ready, the car has been detailed, and it's fully charged and ready to go." Unlike at many dealerships where the final paperwork could take hours, Bay Bridge had streamlined the process. May had already reviewed and signed most documents electronically in advance. The remaining signatures took less than 20 minutes. "Now for the fun part," Vivian said, picking up a small box from her desk. Your keycards, we provide 2 with each vehicle. She handed May the sleek box, which contained 2 card-shaped keys with the Electra logo subtly embossed on them. We've also set up the phone app for you, Vivian continued. Once you log in, you'll have access to all the remote features, preconditioning the cabin, checking charge status, setting charging schedules, and tracking the car's location. Perfect, May said, already imagining how she'd integrate these features into her daily routine. Vivian led her outside to where the car waited. Would you like a final walkthrough of the features, or are you comfortable jumping right in? I think I'm ready to dive in, May said confidently. I've been studying the manual. Vivian smiled, not surprised. I thought you might have. Well, the car is all yours. Remember that our technical support team is available if you have any questions. And your first scheduled maintenance is already in the system for 6 months from now. May ran her hand along the smooth curve of the car's roof. It's beautiful. It suits you, Vivian said sincerely. A sophisticated piece of technology that doesn't need to show off to prove its worth. The compliment caught May off guard, and she felt a surprising rush of emotion. It wasn't just about the car. It was about being seen and respected for who she was. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. Just doing my job properly, Vivian replied with a smile. That's what every customer deserves. After a few more details and a quick photo that May sent to June, she was finally sitting in her new car, adjusting the settings to her preferences. The leather seat embraced her comfortably, and the minimalist dashboard displayed only the essential information. Everything else was tucked away in the center touchscreen, waiting to be accessed when needed. She pressed the start button, and the car came alive silently. The only indication it was ready to move was a subtle message on the screen and the softly glowing drive selector. May put the car in drive and slowly pulled away from the dealership, feeling the smooth, responsive acceleration as she merged into traffic. The handling was even better than she remembered from the test drive. The performance package made the car feel planted on the road, responding to the slightest steering input with precision. The acceleration was exhilarating, instant torque pushing her back into her seat whenever she pressed the pedal with any authority. As she drove, May decided to take the scenic route home, following the winding road along the bay. The car handled the curves with confidence, making the drive pure pleasure. She found herself taking detours, extending her time behind the wheel simply because she was enjoying it so much. Eventually, she pulled into a scenic overlook that provided a panoramic view of the city across the water. She parked and took a moment to appreciate both the view and her new purchase. On impulse, she took out her phone and opened the review site where she had posted about her experience at Prestige Motors. To her surprise, there was a notification. The owner of Prestige Motors had responded to her review. Dear Ms. Lee, I want to personally apologize for your experience at our dealership. After reading your review and investigating the situation, I've spoken with all staff involved. Your feedback has highlighted serious issues in our customer approach that we are now addressing. We've implemented mandatory training on unconscious bias for all sales staff, and we're revising our policies on test drives and deposits to ensure they're applied consistently. While this doesn't excuse your treatment, I hope it demonstrates our commitment to improvement. If you're willing, I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly about how we can do better. Sincerely, David Prestige. May read the message twice. It seemed sincere, more substantive than the email from Thomas. The mention of specific actions rather than vague promises of doing better suggested genuine intent. She decided to respond. Thank you for taking this seriously. I'm glad to hear you're implementing concrete changes. I hope my experience helps create a better environment for future customers of all backgrounds. I would be open to a conversation about specific improvements. After sending her reply, May put her phone away and gazed out at the water for a few more minutes. Her experience had rippled outward, potentially changing things for other women who would walk into that showroom in the future. She started the car again and headed home, navigating through traffic with ease. The Electra responded to her inputs as if reading her mind, making even the mundane drive a pleasure. When she pulled into her driveway, Jun was waiting on the porch with a camera, ready to document her arrival in the new car. He snapped several photos as she parked and stepped out. It's even more beautiful than I remembered, he said, walking around the vehicle. The color is perfect. It drives like a dream, May told him, unable to contain her smile. Everything I hoped for. Vivian called while you were on your way home, Jun mentioned as they walked inside together. She wanted to make sure everything went smoothly and said to tell you there's a small gift in the glove compartment. May raised an eyebrow and went back to check. Inside the glove box was a small envelope. She opened it to find a handwritten note from Vivian, along with a voucher for a professional photo shoot with the car. For when you take it on that mountain drive you mentioned, the note read, "Some journeys deserve to be documented. Thank you for choosing us for this one. Vivian." May smiled, tucking the voucher back into the envelope. Her car-buying journey had been more complicated and illuminating than she'd expected when she first walked into Prestige Motors. What had started as a simple transaction had become a lesson in standing her ground, knowing her worth, and the importance of doing business with people who showed respect from the beginning, not just when they realized what you could afford. As Jun helped her bring in the last items from her old car, May glanced back at the sleek silhouette of the Electra in their driveway. Beyond the beautiful design and impressive technology, it now represented something more. A reminder that sometimes the right path forward isn't the first one you encounter, and that true value includes how you're treated along the way.